In this lesson, we'll outline the evidence for evolution provided by the fossil record, selective breeding, and homologous structures. We can tell all sorts of cool things from fossils. Fossils reveal changes in characteristics of organisms. By examining the physical characteristics of fossils, we can determine who's related to whom. By examining the rock layers in which the fossils are found, we can determine which fossils came first. However, the transition from one species into another often occurs during times of intense environmental changes and pressures, so their transition fossils may not be easily observed. Because there are very specific conditions under which fossils are preserved, not everything that dies actually fossilizes. But once it does, we can use radiometric dating methods to examine just how long ago the organism was alive. The figure on the top left is a picture of trace fossils. Trace fossils are any traces or signs that a living organism once existed there. They include footprints or even bite patterns. The picture below is that of a T-Rex skeleton. This is what we call a body fossil. It's a physical remain of a body part that gives us insight on what this extinct species looked like before our time. The one on the top right is that of a trilobite. And the one at the bottom is a body fossil of a mosquito that was trapped by tree sap and solidified by amber. This is a skeleton that looks very similar to a horse. It's an ancestor of a horse. When it died a long time ago, then it got buried under the ground. New species that arose eventually died, and they got buried on top of the original. So every time a species dies, it forms a new layer over top the existing species, until we come to the present, where we can find the modern horse. The deeper and deeper we dig into the ground, the older the rock layer is, and therefore the older the fossils are that it contains. We can use the relative and absolute ages of these remains to determine when and where certain species diverged from one another, from one species into two species, into 4, 8, 16, and so on. When we compare the body structures between organisms, we are studying something called homologous structures. Homologous structures are anatomical structures such as bones and organs that have similar shapes and sizes. So what does this all mean? It means that organisms that share common structures with each other also share a common ancestor. This idea of common ancestry is easily seen when we take a look at how humans have interfered with the evolution of pigeons. These pigeons were specifically bred for their traits. We call this sexual selection because we specifically bred only the pigeons that had our desired traits. I've never been a big fan of dogs. They smell, they lick you, they don't always do what you ask them to do, and they shed all over the place. However, one thing that I find fascinating about dogs is that they all evolved from a common ancestor, the wolf. Over time, we selected for desirable traits, such as the ability to fetch, hunt, play, or simply for the way that they look. So the selective breeding of domesticated animals such as dogs are a great observable example of evolution at work.